liberty.
Joining us now, Sam Rohrer, the president of the American Pastors Network. Sam, it is so good to have you rejoining us today here on America's Forum.
JD and Morgan, it's great to be with you as always.
Now, Sam, this recent event down in Houston, to which Morgan alluded, does that set the stage to make this midterm election perhaps the most important election of our time in terms of making a statement on securing the right to religious liberty?
Oh, JD, I'd say without a doubt, it heightens everything. I think that the attention level and the interest of Americans across the country and pastors in the pulpit in particular has been greatly heightened by the events in Houston. If it does not, I say they are very much asleep or paralyzed. But I think this is helping to alert, and I think it's put a little bit of a fire under the bellies and the feet of many people across the country.
So Sam, what would you say to people that are hesitant to vote, or they think, why bother? What advice would you give them? Why bother indeed?
Well, you know, why bother is this. I mean, we have a problem in our country. There's no question about it. I mean, the gatekeepers that are in Washington and many of our state levels are folks who do not have a fear of God, do not have a love for the Constitution, and really, in my opinion, have become a law unto themselves. How did that happen? Well, it's happened because the people in America, Christian people, and those who are patriots, those who understand constitutional law and the rule of law, have felt that for some reason this holy experiment in freedom would just continue forever. But the enemies of freedom have been hard at work for a generation or more, and now we're seeing that come front and center. We can't avoid it. So if we don't want to lose what we have, those who understand these principles of freedom, moral law, God's law, fear of God, the Constitution, if we do not step up, we guaranteed we'll lose what we have. I can't guarantee that every election in this country is going to be won if people get up and vote, but I guarantee you that if just even a portion of those who know what to do but haven't voted vote, you would see a major change in the elections. It does make a difference.
Sam, you have been a busy guy. A few days ago, you Skyped in from Pennsylvania. You're Skyping in this morning from California. You are out on the road, and there has been an effort over the past few years to have pastors in the pulpit do more than simply speak about being civic-minded. In fact, to stand up and endorse candidates from the pulpit. Do you believe that is the role of a pastor?
Well, a pastor's role is to communicate the truth. The pastor's role is to take biblical principles and teach it to the people so that they know how to go out and understand the issues of the day, how to interact, how to affect the culture. It's the pastor's role. If our people understand that our founders understood, as William Penn said in Pennsylvania, you have to have people in office who are people of integrity and character. It's the pastor's role to be able to define what that is, and that does mean that telling which candidates meet those requirements and which candidates do not meet those requirements. So yes, it is a pastor's role because he deals with truth, and truth is obviously the underpinnings of law and freedom.
So Sam, what do you say to candidates who've stopped talking about divisive social issues in order to appeal to moderate or independent voters? What would you say to them?
Well, you know, the moral underpinning, there is a moral underpinning under every issue, a tax issue, a social issue. You can't get away from it. The question is, whose moral underpinning? Our founders believed, obviously, very clearly, that the moral underpinnings of biblical truth, the Ten Commandments, were what undergirds our law. If we separate that and say we're not going to talk about those things because they're controversial, you'll get people in office who won't even vote right on tax issues, let alone matters of marriage.
And tax issues, just as a matter of political history, Sam, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there was a provision advocated by Lyndon Johnson back in the 60s that dealt with tax treatments of religious institutions that led to the reticence of pastors standing up and making formal endorsements in the pulpit. Is that the historical background on that?
Well, that's the historical background of the Johnson Amendment. It's called that the ACLU and others, IRS, have used to try and scare pastors in the pulpits by saying, you will lose your 501c3 status if you touch on anything that's political. Well, number one, that's not true, but that's what Johnson did, and that is an underpinning of a lot of the residents from the pulpit. But we say that pastors in the pulpit, frankly, you don't even need that 501c3 status. You're a church. Your obligation is to God first, and then and the truth, and tell the truth regardless of how it goes. You'll answer to God for that. That's the most important thing, regardless of what Lyndon Johnson did with the IRS and 501c3 status. But you are correct. That is what's put out there as a fear tactic for most pastors in the pulpit.
So, Sam, going back to the politics, our story we came in with, as far as the 5 pastors being subpoenaed to turn over their notes and their sermons, how is this legal, and what does this have to do with popular social issues? It seems to me what you do in your church is private.
Got about 45 seconds on this, Sam. Time is growing short.
Okay. All right, well, they're very quick. No, what the Houston mayor did was absolutely unconstitutional, unlawful, illegal. There is no provision for the federal government or a government at any level to step into the role of the pulpit of the church. So what happened there was unconstitutional, was improper, and the pastor's response should be disregard it, disavow it, and go forward with even more aggressive as telling truth from the pulpit, and that does mean talking about politics.
And talking about politics is something that will continue as we see what happened in Houston, what may be afoot other places, and what may happen perhaps more positively for free expression and adhering to our First Amendment rights following this election. Sam Rohrer, as always, we thank you for your time and your input as you Skype in today from California.
Good to be with. Thank you, J.D. and Morgan.
Now, it's interesting to hear what Sam had to say, and we'd like to hear from you. Do you believe it's fitting, proper, indeed it's required, that pastors go into the pulpit and offer endorsements in addition to their teachings and citings of Scripture? Is that the proper role for a pastor? Why don't you tweet me your comments at NewsmaxTV, hashtag America's Forum. There's also newsmaxtv.com/comment, and don't forget Facebook, facebook.com/Newsmax, as you can weigh in on this important issue. A reminder that tonight, 7 o'clock Eastern, our pre-election coverage from Newsmax New York, followed by tabulation and analysis of the returns on our midterm coverage at 8 p.m. here on Newsmax TV. We're coming right back.